Hello and welcome back to making the black bag. If you remember, we are making a nice veg tan leather bag, and I have the paper mock-up here. So it's a carry handle version. It has straps for carrying on your back, and you can unhook these and use it as an ordinary crossbody bag as well. So a lovely versatile design, and it's not too difficult to make if you take your care and take your time. So we talked about the leather and the tools last time, and we started doing a little bit of preparation, having cut all the leather out. Today I'm going to be skiving the edges of the panels that we're sewing. And by skiving I mean planing down, thinning those edges. Because at the moment, if I take the two edges for sewing, you can see that will be quite thick. It will be getting on for 7mm thick. So the idea with a skive is to, with a very sharp blade, just take some of the edges off to thin them both down and get it to roughly 3mm thick. That will make it easier for sewing. It will make it visually far more attractive and less chunky. And the best tool, unless you have a nice pad skiver, big machine, is to use one of these little bladed knives. They're very cheap but very effective and very good, very controllable. I do also use a French skiving knife, not essential, but quite nice if you want a more levelled plain cut, and also one of these little skiving knives as well. But as I say, you've got that, you're fine. So let's get going and do some skiving. It's one of the side panels of the bag, and I've just marked with a silver marker pen a margin around 3 of the edges, and that's the margin that we want to skive down. So the easiest method of doing it, as I say, is to use one of these little bladed knives and very carefully at an angle go along and just take little shavings off until you get a nice beveled sort of surface there. Just take your time, and one can get quite a nice little bevel off. So that's the sort of thing you're trying to do, a nice even bevel with an even thickness of leather below it. I'll carry on. If in doubt with this, just take slower cuts and take less off each time, because it's far easier just to do lots of little fine cuts than trying to do one massive big cut, which then goes too deep, goes where you don't want it going, and just generally looks pretty awful. So nice gentle little cuts, and you'll find you'll get there. Now, it's not essential, as I say, but if you have one of these skiving knives, you can then, if you want to, go over what you've just done and do a little, it's like a planing cut. It just evens everything up quite nicely and levels it down, gets rid of all those little hillocks and gets you a nice skive. All of this is obviously on the inside, so it's not going to notice to anyone on the outside, but what you're trying to do is to get that edge as consistent in thickness as possible. I've got a high spot just there, which I just want to get rid of. You can feel it actually is the best way. If one goes around, and basically at that edge you want to have it half the thickness of the piece of leather in rough terms. So I'll carry on going round, do the same down here. Again, just little gentle cuts to start with, and probably won't show up terribly clearly on camera, but this is just a corner of a bag. It's got multiple stitching, as I was experimenting, just trying different approaches to machine stitching on this, and anyway, we'll be hand stitching, but it's quite nice to try different ideas. That's the sort of edge kind of thickness one's getting, and one can then polish it all up and make it look nice. But it does give you a nice solid sturdy bag that keeps its shape well. So I'm just now going down the long lengths of the bag, I've done the side panels. So this is the base section. Just checking the thickness as I go along to make sure that I'm getting it all to a similar sort of thickness. You don't have to be super accurate, but it does make a better finished result if you can be. So basically, try and do it as best as you can. And that way it should come out okay. So here are two skived edges, and I'm just joining them together now. And that probably gives you the sort of impression of what we're trying to do. If you get them fairly even, the edges will sit together quite happily. And it's taken the total thickness down to probably about just over 3mm. I was just seeing if I had a scrap to hand, but I haven't got one, have I? It's some of this strapping actually. So that's the full thickness of the leather, and this is it skived down. So I have taken the thickness down roughly by half, and it's like a beveled angle cut. So a bevel off there, going from full thickness to half thickness on the edge. It will just make it a lot easier to sew. It visually makes the seam look less bulky and more attractive as well. Now I've done all the skiving, I'm going to just trim the corners of the two side panels. So if I just show the little sort of mock-up I've got here, what I'm effectively doing is just cutting a bit off the inside corner of waste material. Now the trick with this, I've just drawn the lines in silver on the inside. As you can see where they cross there. That's the corner I want to cut out. But actually it looks far neater if you cut your line for the thickness of the leather you're using just below. So this is the corner we want to remove, and rather than cut on that line there, I've just cut below it. This cut I will make on that line. I'd normally do this with a knife, but on camera it's actually a bit easier, I think, if I just use the scissors. So I've cut that bit out so that we can make the fold, but I've left that little lip a bit longer there for the thickness of the leather. Because what will happen is this will all get bent round and that will get bent over. But that will give a little portion of tuck sort of behind. It comes a bit clearer, I think, when I actually do it, but if you cut them out like that, you'll get a better finish on the end result. What I'm going to do next, I'm going to use a little grooving tool to put a groove down where these silver lines are to make this all easier to bend inward. So if you don't have a specific grooving tool, just use your normal stitch sinking tool. As I have one of these little cutting tools that does a little V channel, I'll use it. It's a bit like a plane. It's down the tip there. You can probably just about see it. It's got a little V-shaped plane blade that cuts the channel. So I'll do that all round. Make these tabs easier to bend inward. So having done the skiving and the little channel on the inside to make the fold over easier, I'm now putting a channel around the outside edges to sink the stitching. And it just gets the stitching below the surface. It's a nice little detail which just protects the stitching from abrasion, and it looks neater. You don't have to do this. You could just put your stitching on top, but I think it's quite nice to sink it down. So I'm doing this all round on each of the side panels. On both the end pieces, I've put these outside channels in for the stitches. So again, I'm just sinking the stitching channel. This is on the outside of the case. on the front and the back and the base. Well, that's the skiving and channeling done, and thanks very much for watching. In the next film I'll be doing the tabs, so making up the tabs and riveting them on the bag. So bye for now.